Today on Studio One, Andy Freeman makes a difference during our bitter cold winters with his invention of the Headbolt heater. Tom Schmanski forecasts the weather with different types of highs and lows, and being pregnant in the 90s, and should a mother exercise or not. All this and more for Friday, March 10th, 1995. Hi everyone, and welcome to Studio One today. Scott Seiler here along with Jennifer Vandergaan, Jennifer Diedrich, and Adam Braze. Great show coming up. We'll be talking with Senator Byron Dorgan by satellite from Washington, D.C. He'll be talking about the controversial vote on the balancing the budget and also the base closure list. And along with the base closure topic that Senator Dorgan will be discussing, we also have the commander of the Grand Forks Air Force Base, General Andrews, and he'll be along to discuss more information about the base closures and also the future of the Grand Forks and Minot bases. Good. And Adam will tell us what's happening in weather. That's right, and to add to all that excitement, we've got some warmer temperatures to talk about. Imagine that, warmer temperatures. I'll give you the details in just a minute. Okay. All that and more coming up in the next 60 minutes, but now the top news stories and Jennifer Diedrich. Thanks, Scott. The White House says the GOP plans to pay for tax cuts for the wealthy by cutting programs for children and the poor. President Clinton had lunch at a Virginia elementary school Thursday. Afterwards, he criticized the GOP proposal to replace the federal school lunch program with block grants to states. A House committee has already approved that measure. Republicans say it could save money without hurting children. A Pacific storm is bearing down on Northern California. Up to 8 inches of rain fell in some areas, and gale force winds knocked out power to more than 500,000 homes statewide. Some areas were evacuated as rivers overflowed and 30 state highways closed because of weather-related problems. Rain is expected on and off until tomorrow morning. Southern California is bracing for the deluge. The leader of the Irish Republican Army's political wing has been given a visa to enter the United States. The White House is inviting Gerry Adams to attend St. Patrick's Day celebrations at the White House next week. In return, Adams promised to discuss IRA weapons disposal with Britain and pledged not to use any money raised during the trip to buy weapons. Despite British displeasure, the Clinton administration says it is a step forward.
We have a very productive and good and warm and special relationship with the United Kingdom, and we would hope that we can proceed. While we may differ somewhat on tactics, from time to time, we will proceed in the spirit of that relationship, which is aimed ultimately on the question of Northern Ireland to a peace process that can resolve the troubles.
Adams' meeting with President Clinton will be the first between an IRA-associated official and a U.S. president. Thousands of phone lines are being hijacked. It's called slamming. Long-distance phone accounts are transferred from one phone company to another. Phone bills with outrageous rates are mailed to innocent customers. Some are double the normal cost. Since the AT&T monopoly was recently broken, local phone companies are connecting consumers to long-distance carriers.
Such as doing math.
It's probably becoming more evident because consumers are starting to realize that it's happening to them. And they're finding it out through some different kinds of ways, you know, looking at their bill and seeing some unusual high amounts.
An AT&T spokesperson says competition has started a new front in the telephone wars. AT&T estimates about 5.6 million customers were hijacked last year. The National Assessment of Educational Progress exam is a test students take every 2 years. The test's purpose is to show the students' progress in different subjects. Bismarck Senator Bob Stenjum disagrees. He has introduced legislation allowing parents to view the NAEP tests before they are given. Director Archie LaPointe says that if the legislation is passed, North Dakota may no longer give the exam. The exam is given in national and state-by-state comparisons. North Dakota ranked in the top 5 in the state-by-state comparison since the first test in 1990. 2 weeks ago, professional boxer Gerald McLennan remained in critical condition in a London hospital. Today, McLennan has given little chance of going back to his normal lifestyle. Studio One reporter Lucy Sifka talks to local boxers about the recent concern.
Well, I've been knocked down, about two times, No serious concussions or nothing like that, but it just happens, a punch you don't see will knock you down.
Boxers say the roughness of the sport is a part of the game. Hitting each other is part of the sport.
The fact that a person is hitting another person, they see that as brutal in some ways, and they think it's just like a street fight, and it's not. It's there's a lot of thinking going on in there, and there's a lot of preparation, a lot of conditioning, and you know, and you have to use your head in there as well as your fists.
One local neurologist says a hard blow to the head can not only affect you at that moment, it can also have long-term effects. This boxer thinks serious injuries can be avoided.
And if the referee does his proper job, and if a guy's starting to get hurt or whatever, he should step in and stop the fight, or the gentleman's corner that's fighting should stop the fight.
Referees are as important as the boxers in this sport. Their job is to help avoid injuries. With injuries in mind, the 8-second rule is designed. It gives refs a chance to look at the fighter. If the fighter appears injured, the ref can stop the match. It's his call. Rules in boxing have not changed much over the years, even with the high amount of injuries.
You know, there's dangers and everything, but fighters know that it's their choice to get in the ring, you know. Nobody's forcing them to do it.
For Studio One News, I'm Lucy Sivka.
So is boxing as dangerous as we once thought it was?
Well, actually, a survey showed that boxing it ranked 9th in the most dangerous sports after soccer, hockey, and race car driving.
Wow.
Well, a good chance for all of us to try out some new sports this week as spring break is starting. Adam joins us now to tell us what we can expect for weather.
Well, thank you, Jennifer. And it will be a great weekend to check out some new sports because we're going to see warmer temperatures for a change. So for those of you who are sick of walking around like a popsicle and being chilled to the bone, I've got some good news for you, and it comes in a way of 40-degree highs, especially come the end of the weekend. But to start off today, we have a partly cloudy sky with a high of 18 degrees. Winds from the south at 16 miles per hour, and the barometric pressure is falling. On the regional conditions, we see that it remains quite warm throughout the region. It's currently 33 in Sioux Falls, 31 in Pierre, 28 in Minot, and 24 in Minneapolis-St. Paul. On the radar, what we do find is that main area precipitation out in California. Many problems there with flooding. They've had as much as 8 inches of rain, and to add to that, they've had up to 100-mile-an-hour winds. A lot of damage across the area, and it looks as though that's going to continue at least through the weekend. Also, another thing to mention is precipitation across the southeastern United States earlier in the week produced as many as 32 tornadoes. It looks as though that could develop again this weekend, so if you are planning travel there, keep in mind you may have to deal with some severe weather. Throughout much of the country, though, clear skies and warmer temperatures are in store for the weekend. As you can see on today's weather map, that low-pressure system is developing out to the west. Heavy mountain snows as much as 2 or 3 feet and heavy coastal rains as much as 4 inches are expected out there at least through the weekend. And as you can see as we move into tomorrow's map, another system moves into the northwestern United States as this system pulls closer to us, giving us the potential for some rain, believe it or not. Not snow, rain, maybe a little bit of freezing rain, but that should take care of that snow really quickly. Today's highs, well, they should be in the 30s and 40s throughout much of the region. Last weekend, we were talking about 30 and 40 below wind chills. And tonight's lows, they should be in the teens throughout much of the region, 20s to the south. The forecast for today calls for partly cloudy skies with a high in the upper 30s, winds from the south at 10 to 25 miles per hour. And tonight, it'll remain partly cloudy with a low only dropping off into the mid-teens, winds from the south at 5 to 15 miles per hour. The extended outlook does show us that warm-up in store. It looks like we'll have a March meltdown as temperatures warm into the 40s on Sunday. Believe it or not, 40 degrees. Isn't that something to look forward to?
That's great news. Thanks, Adam. Well, the weather starts getting nice just in time for spring break.
Well, I like the warm weather, and I don't hear anyone around here complaining about it.
I think we're all looking forward to it. And from what I've heard, there's something for basketball fans to look forward to as well.
You know, a lot of people were sad when Michael Jordan left basketball to go to baseball, but now the rumor is that he's coming back to
A lot
basketball.
of people will be really happy about that.
It's putting a lot of smiles on people's faces, that's for sure. In sports, Michael Jordan is apparently trading in his spikes for some Air Jordans. Jordan has reportedly discovered what most of his fans have been saying for a year now, that basketball, not baseball, is where he belongs. Sources tell the Associated Press and ESPN that the 3-time NBA Most Valuable Player will definitely return to the Chicago Bulls probably within a couple of weeks. Jordan practiced with the team on Wednesday and Thursday. Last year, you'll recall, he struggled to earn a lackluster .202 batting average on a Chicago White Sox farm team. It's believed he's in no hurry and will need a few weeks to get in game condition. In other NBA action, there's something about a close game that spurs San Antonio on to victory. Dak Rivers spotted Sean Elliott for the game winner with 1 second left for a 198th win over Cleveland. Turning now to the NHL, where Anaheim and Detroit skated to a 4-all tie. Paul Kariya tied it for the Mighty Ducks in the third. Kariya right now is thinking about the one that got away from him. The rookie blasted one off the post in overtime. And Tampa Bay and Phoenix are hoping the baseball strike is resolved, at least by 1998. That's when they'll field teams of their own as part of the Major League's next expansion. The two cities were approved at a joint meeting of the American and National Leagues on Thursday. Tentative team names are the Arizona Diamondbacks and the Tampa Bay Devil Rays. And those are the national highlights. Now look at the overnight scores. With all of the legal dramatics lawyers in the O.J. Simpson case are using to the fullest, it's nice to know some law students know how to really have fun. Studio One sports reporter Josh Anderson shows us how our future lawyers are skating circles around their competition.
Legal teams came together in Grand Forks to fight a huge battle on the ice, trading in their dress shoes for hockey skates. Most of the students had little trouble understanding how to approach the bench, but some of the players could spend a little time working on their defense. Let's find out what the jury has to say.
Come on now, let's get it! Take him out, come on!
This event might change the way some people view law students.
If anything, it breaks a stereotype that we're just a bunch of eggheads, I guess.
Objections or cross-examinations are rare in these games. There are penalties, though, offering some students time to catch up on their reading. Rules help the players avoid any major injuries, additional expenses, and of course, lawsuits.
Most of the players from the States will come out with just shin pads, elbow pads, gloves, and a helmet. Most people don't wear face masks, or if they do, they wear half shields.
Most players have never played hockey before entering law school. This makes the skill levels of the players more enjoyable to watch. Fans came from around the region to watch this tournament, but the question is, can law students play hockey? Yes, they can, and they prove it by playing an aggressive, fast-paced game with only a few short minutes between periods. These games are the highlight of the entire season for the players and the fans as well. This is Josh Anderson reporting for Studio One Sports.
UND finished second overall out of 8 teams playing in the tournament, and the guy who was laughing hysterically in the stands is John Noah. He's a big hockey fan. When he was playing for hockey at UND, he was just a remarkable player.
Oh, I didn't know that. Learn something new every day.
So he takes fun into looking at the fun side of hockey.
Mm-hmm. I know that all those law students really had a good time. My roommate went to the games, and she said it was a lot of fun.
Good, good. Well, coming up in the next half hour in Studio One, first we'll be talking with Senator Byron Dorgan on keeping the Grand Forks Air Force Base off the base closure list and his reasons for voting against the balanced budget amendment.
General James Andrews from the Grand Forks Air Force Base will be along later. But first, here are some of the events taking place in your community. Studio One continues after this.
Insurance. Unfortunately, it costs. Fortunately, it pays. Voller Insurance. Grand Forks, Devil's Lake, Bismarck.
Banking is easy when you have options, like the options you get at Community National Bank. Like their friendly tellers. Can I have this traded in for nickels?
Sure, Bill.
And I love going to customer service.
Tootsie Roll, Bill.
Yes, thank you. That's customer service. Check cash card convenience when you need it the most. And those drive-ups, always one of my favorite options. And these 24-hour ATMs conveniently located all over town. Aren't they the best?
Meet me at Columbia. Meet me at Columbia Mall.
There's always something happening where laughter overflows. People meeting people and
exciting place to go. Something's there for everyone, and you can see it all. You're free to choose a million things, so meet me at the mall. Meet me at Columbia Mall.
And pick your insurance company? As your agent and broker, that's our exact job. We think we do it well, and have been since 1947. Voller Insurance, Grand Forks, Devils Lake, Bismarck.
While North Dakota's 2 senators received an incredible amount of national television exposure for their votes against the balanced budget amendment, another area of attention is the survival of the 2 bases in North Dakota. Senator Byron Dorgan joins us direct by satellite from Washington, D.C. Senator Dorgan, welcome to Studio One.
Hi, Scott. How are you?
I'm doing just fine. The weather here is supposed to be much warmer than the cold temps we've been having in the past.
Well, I'm headed that way, I hope, either this evening or tomorrow morning.
Yep, so you should have great weather when you arrive. Senator, let's start it off with your vote against the balanced budget amendment. You know, that is all over with right now. What plans do you and Senator Conrad have to try and balance the budget?
Well, first of all, we have to balance the budget by cutting spending and using the revenue to cut the deficit. Interestingly enough, those who last week were the loudest proponents of changing the Constitution to require a balanced budget this week have proposed a $188 billion tax cut, much of which will go to the wealthy in this country. I mean, it seems to me they look like a bunch of trained circus ponies, all dressed up, running in a circle. You don't deal with the federal budget deficit, which is a serious problem, by proposing very significant tax cuts. That might be the popular thing to do, but it's not the right thing to do. What we've got to do is decide together to cut federal spending, and we're working on that. I'm working on a block of spending cuts, and I would like to have, frankly, voted for the constitutional amendment to balance the budget, but I will not vote for something that will misuse or raid the Social Security trust funds to the tune of $1.3 trillion, and that's precisely what the proponents guaranteed was going to be done.
Republicans in the state of North Dakota and also across the nation are criticizing you because you said in your campaign that you would vote for a balanced budget amendment if it came up. How are you going to react to that?
Well, and I did vote for a balanced budget amendment last week. There were 2 of them voted on. One of them was the Feinstein substitute balanced budget amendment, which guaranteed that no Social Security trust funds would be raided. I voted yes on that. But the Hatch-Simon constitutional amendment proposal would have guaranteed the trust funds would have been raided, and I voted no. So I mean, this political notion somehow that there's a flip-flop. The only flip-flop here has been those who a year ago said they wouldn't use the Social Security trust funds to balance the budget, who this year by their vote determined they would raid the Social Security trust funds. They're the ones that flip-flopped. If they hadn't done that, this would have passed with 75 or 80 votes.
You mentioned just a little earlier that the Republicans are proposing all these new tax cuts. Is this going to be another hot topic that we're going to see?
Well, I tell you what, I don't support them. I mean, I know it's popular. This is all about polls. What's popular, and then go ahead and propose it. It's not right. I mean, it might be popular to talk about tax cuts, and I know people might want to have tax cuts, but we've got a serious deficit problem, and those who are serious would want to, I think, cut federal spending, join us to cut federal spending, and use the money we save to cut the federal deficit. Now, I graduated from a small school in North Dakota, a high school class of 9, and they taught traditional arithmetic. And you need to balance your budget. What you do is you don't cut your revenue and increase defense spending, which they also propose to do. That must be some sort of new math I fail to understand. And frankly, I think most of the American people would believe our responsibility now is to not to look for the popular route, cut federal spending, and use the money to cut the federal deficit.
Senator, let's switch gears a little bit and head directly back here to the state. Minot has just been on the realignment list. What does that mean for Minot, and how does that affect the people at the Grand Forks Air Force Base?
Well, both Minot and Grand Forks are on the list, what's called a realignment list by the Base Closing Commission, but only with respect to missiles. The Pentagon has said it would expect to want to take the Minuteman missiles out of Grand Forks and move them to Malmstrom, Montana. If it would decide not to take the Grand Forks missiles, they've then said they would take the Minot missiles. The good news in all of this, however, is that the Pentagon has also said, looking at all of their bases and into the future, we want to keep both North Dakota bases open and operating. That's awfully good news for our communities. And so I think when the dust settles here, yes, we may have lost a mission at one of our bases, but the fact is I think the Air Force will have both bases open, and both will be major air bases in the Air Force's future.
Do you know when a decision like that will be made?
No, but the Base Closing Commission will, I think, come out to North Dakota and hold some hearings either in the region or in both communities, perhaps. I'm going to check on that today, but I expect there'll be some hearings and on-site visits, and then a decision likely would come in a couple of months.
Senator General James Andrews from the base is going to be on our program in just a couple of minutes. Any new information you want to pass along to him today?
No, except that he and the people at the base do an excellent job. One of the reasons that the Pentagon, including General Fogelman, who heads the Air Force, and others have said to us they want to keep the bases open is, for example, Grand Forks is the premier supertanker base in America. They do a terrific job out there, and I'm proud of them, and so is the country. And I'm really pleased the Pentagon, in looking at all of its assets all around the country, have said, we want to keep both of these bases open in the future. That's good news, I think.
Mm-hmm. Tom Daschle is Senate Minority Leader now, and you have a close role with him. How does that help the people of North Dakota, and what exactly do you do in that role?
Oh boy, you know, the way the legislative process works is hard to describe, let alone my role in it. Tom Daschle is the minority leader. He comes from South Dakota, and the advantage of that for us is Senator Conrad, myself, and others are able to work on things that are important to our region of the country. I'm very concerned about the agricultural economy, for example, and a range of other things. And working with Senator Daschle has been very helpful. I'm the Assistant Democratic Floor Leader, which means I work a lot with Senator Daschle on floor debate and helping arrange and organizing the debate that we're going to have on various pieces of legislation.
Mm-hmm. Senator, thank you for joining us today. We're glad you're with us on Studio One.
Thank you very much, and say hi to Colonel Andrews, if you will, General Andrews.
Okay, I certainly will pass that along. Thanks, Senator.
Much.
Just ahead on Studio One, forecasting the weather doesn't have to be all numbers and maps. Meteorologist Tom Schmanski puts a little flair into his predictions. But first, how would your car start on a sub-zero morning if you did not plug it in? We'll show you the man behind the block heater you use almost every day during the winter.
24 hours a day, Grand Forks Flight Support is here for you. 24 hours a day, you can book business and social charter flights to any airport in North America. 24 hours a day, we offer competitive prices with a $125 first flight certificate. Grand Forks Flight Support offers a large selection of top-of-the-line aircrafts. For an appointment or more information on flight instruction, call Grand Forks Flight Support at 772-5504.
I was looking for a car for 3 months, and the folks at Honda Nissan knew I did TV commercials. And so they asked me for suggestions, and all I could tell them was how great I was treated at Honda Nissan. And the next thing you know, here I am. When I went to Honda Nissan, I was treated with such respect. And I really couldn't believe the quality and selection that I found there. People always tell me that you get what you pay for. But at Honda Nissan, you really do get what you pay for.
Newman Outdoor Advertising, a sight for more eyes. Outdoor advertising, it's bigger than life. It gives you flexibility. Use it as a constant reminder. Use it to advertise your message or product. Outdoor advertising, it's big, it's bold. Get your message across. Outdoor advertising, it works. For more information, call Bill Kasager in Fargo or Grand Forks.
We sometimes take for granted that plugging in our car means the difference between whether it starts or not on bitter cold days. But did you know the man who invented the Headbolt heater is from Grand Forks? Studio One's Chuck Crummy shows us how Andy Freeman is making a difference in the community.
Andy Freeman knew when it was extremely cold outside that heat was the only way to help a car's engine start.
Back in the early days, I remember the mailman at home, he always used to drain the oil out of his car. And other people carried out tea kettles of hot water, you know, and they'd pour it on the intake manifold to get the thing started. And some people took even hot ashes out of their cook stove and laid it underneath the oil pan to get some heat in there. And of course, those things did all help starting.
Andy was tired of constantly recharging those batteries in 1946. So he started experimenting on his own car.
And when you start your car, you know, on a cold day, well, it takes quite a bit out of your battery. Then I'd drive a half a mile and go over to work there, and then at noon come, I'd have to start all over again, and the first thing you knew, my battery ran down, and she wouldn't start anymore, so after that, I'd have a problem starting my car, and I'd put a battery charger on it, trying to get it back to speed there, but it was a little slow coming back, so I decided that maybe there was some way, better way to, you know, heat the car and get it, you know, to start better than it was doing.
As with any inventor, there's a trial and error period, but persistence kept Andy motivated.
What worked on my car didn't work on his, so then that led to, see, what other way can we get into that engine? And one of them was, of course, through the headbolt, and then all the other one was through the frost plug. And the headbolt kind of had the most appeal to me because it was, well, I don't know, it just seemed like there was too many cars that had headbolts and went to water. That'd be a good way to do it.
He just didn't stop with the invention of the headbolt heater. Rural electricity and the beginning of Dakota Power Cooperative is another chapter in his life.
I overlooked the work I did at Dakota, because what we did out there, we built a wonderful organization out there, and we've opened up the lignite fields out there, and we started half a dozen power plants out there. And Dakota's, accomplished all kinds of things that other utilities have looked at with, they look at it and say that's a good idea.
Andy was influenced by his father and grandfather because he could fix almost anything. And while Andy's accomplishments come in different ways, he's humble but proud of a few of them.
What I'd like to be remembered for? Well, I don't know. I guess the headbolt heater and also Dakota, that'd be the two main things.
Chuck Crummy, Studio One.
Even to this day, Andy is coming up with new inventions. He just happened to turn 86 this week. We're back in a moment on Studio One with the entertaining power of Tom Schmanski. He's a meteorologist who does more than just give the weather.
Why don't you come up here, Pumpkin?
What are you doing, Larry?
Well, Vince, I've asked my pumpkin to sit on my lap to prove a point.
And what is that, your Larryness?
Even if we fasten our safety belts, even if you hold on tight, even if you were watching the road, in a crash, your pumpkin will be nothing but a squash.
You could learn a lot from a dummy. Use child safety seats.
We love that little pumpkin to pieces.
Hey, were you guys born in a house? Yeah. What have we got to graze on? Nothing. Please? Now, don't be making those big cow eyes at... okay.
It is okay if you give them the good stuff. Mootown Snackers, cheese and sticks, or cheese and pretzels. The deliciously dippable snacks.
Animals.
From Mootown Snackers.
If you don't want your fish swimming in these waters, try the world's greatest tuna sub at Subway. Chunk-like tuna, fresh baked bread, and all your favorite fixins. So remember, it's their way or Subway, the place where fresh is the taste.
Some people love the seafood or all the fresh fixins. But what gets most people is the crab. The Subway Seafood and Crab Sub. Subway, the place where fresh is the taste.
Every day across America, millions of people turn on their televisions for the local weather forecast. However, some meteorologists are taking their forecast to a new level and are delivering more than just the weather. Studio One's Adam Braze takes a look at how one meteorologist is adding a new dimension to forecasting.
Many people hate the cold and blustery conditions of the North Country, but there is one man who wouldn't have it any other way. Tom Schmanski is a meteorologist at KTHI TV in Fargo. To him, the weather here is like a dream. This is the main reason he moved to the Red River Valley from Maine.
Cold weather brought me here. Actually, it's the several reasons. The rapidly changing weather conditions, very attractive to any meteorologist because it gives us something to talk about.
Tom prefers local forecasting than working for a company like the Weather Channel, which gives the forecast on a national level. Many national weather forecasters rely on computers, which sometimes lead to mistakes. Tom says living in a community offers viewers a more accurate picture of the weather and not something just pulled off a computer screen.
Being physically in a location, you have a big advantage. For instance, last week the Weather Channel was forecasting 55 to 60 degrees for here. They were going purely by the computers, and we forecasters rely on computers, but if we relied just on computers, we would make mistakes like that, so you have to know the area.
If you watch the 6 and 10 o'clock news, it doesn't take long to see how the weather affects
Now, if we take a look at the, not 1, 2, or 3, but the 4-dimensional satellite loop here, we have a little trough of low pressure, one high pressure system located
It's not a put on, it's something I do naturally, I guess, because I'm really excited about the weather. And anything I'm excited about, I'm kind of flamboyant about.
Tom gets excited when working with the community, whether it be working with a Sky Spy to retrieve the latest weather conditions in Pizik, or talking with a group of 4th and 5th graders about the weather. Tom has fun. It's a good thing for his enthusiasm too, because preparing the daily forecast is no easy task. The studio may look quiet now, but he usually doesn't arrive on the set until 5 minutes before he goes on air. It takes about 1 hour to prepare each minute of his broadcast. This means he spends roughly 5 hours looking at charts, graphs, and computers to interpret the latest information. On top of that, he has to keep up to date on the latest technologies and reports in order to keep his viewers ahead of the storm. To him, that's the fun part.
Trying to figure out the weather around here, if I can get a forecast right about a storm, if I can figure out a snowstorm and get the snow totals just right. The challenge of predicting the weather here daily, weekly, and seasonally is my favorite part of the job. But I do also love getting out and speaking to people.
Only single digits above the donuts for tomorrow. Teens to the west, and it looks like a slight warm-up ahead on Thursday. You got 30 seconds to think about what I'm going to say for the forecast, and I'll be back in about 30 seconds.
Tom enjoys preparing his own forecast, even when he is wrong, because he says it's important to always do your own work. Adam Braze, Studio One.
Tom decided he wanted to be a meteorologist in the 3rd grade when a weathercaster visited his classroom. Today, Tom is the one who's visiting the classrooms. Coming up in our next half hour on Studio One, Brigadier General James Andrews will tell us what lies ahead for the Grand Forks Air Force Base and about the steps being taken to keep it off the base closure list.
Plus, a look at exercise during pregnancy. What do doctors say to women who want to continue working out? That story plus news and weather as Studio One continues.
UND's Division of Continuing Education can help you learn throughout your lifetime. Begin or continue your education through correspondence study and learning after hours with classes on weekends and evenings. Or enhance your personal and professional development through conferences, management seminars, and specialized programs.
Our goal is to provide quality programs and extend UND resources to you.
For more information, call 777-4266 or 1-800-342-8230.
24 hours a day, Grand Forks Flight Support is here for you. 24 hours a day, you can book business and social charter flights to any airport in North America. 24 hours a day, we offer competitive prices with a $125 first flight certificate. Grand Forks Flight Support offers a large selection of top-of-the-line aircrafts. For an appointment or more information on flight instruction, call Grand Forks Flight Support at 772-5504.
The University Bookstore at UND is open to everyone and invites you to make it your lifelong learning resource center. At the largest university bookstore in the Dakotas, you can choose from a wide selection of educational materials, imprinted clothing, and gift items. The trade department carries general interest books, reference materials, and educational software. Special orders and direct mailing services are available at the University Bookstore by calling 1-800-671-0948.
And welcome back to Studio One. In the news, former First Lady Nancy Reagan says America is losing the war on the drugs. We'll have an update on that in the news in just a minute.
Also, a weather update from Adam.
That's right, and finally, some warmer temperatures. I'll give you the details in just a minute.
Okay. On the way, this final half-hour Studio One, Beth Randklev is an award-winning principal at Ben Franklin Elementary School. She'll tell us what education will mean in the year 2000.
We'll also check in on Brigadier General James Andrews, commander of the 319th Air Refueling Wing at the Grand Forks Air Force Base. He'll discuss the future of the base and the changes that could occur if the 321st Missile Group is inactivated.
But before we bring on our guests, we turn to Jennifer Diedrich and the news.
Thanks, Scott. Nancy Reagan says the nation is losing the war on drugs. In testimony to a House subcommittee, the former First Lady says the number of kids using drugs is rising. She urged more money be spent on drug prevention and begged national leaders to speak out.
I'm not here to criticize or to blame, but after the great strides that were made just a few years back, I am worried that this nation is forgetting how endangered our children are by drugs.
The White House is criticizing the GOP for voting in the Congressional Committee to cut funding for Reagan-era anti-drug programs. An accused Mexican drug lord has been added to the FBI's list of 10 most wanted fugitives. Attorney General Janet Reno describes Juan Garcia Abrigo as leader of the Mexico's most powerful drug trafficking rings. Reno says the United States will rely on Mexican authorities to capture him. Affirmative action is the latest target of GOP cutbacks. Cutting the programs would most affect white females. This group benefits the most from affirmative action programs. A new poll shows more people are in favor of preferential programs if they benefit women, not minorities. However, less than half of the people surveyed agreed with filling job quotas. Many argue that affirmative action programs are still needed.
We have made progress, little by little. You know, it has not been rapid. It has not been outstanding. But it's a process of doing what's right.
Many worry that double-income families and single mothers will face reduced wages. Despite affirmative action, women's salaries are still a third less than men's. Travelers who get lost on the highway can now ask their cars for directions. General Motors is experimenting with a navigation system that tells you where you are, where to go, and how to get there. The flip of a button turns on a computer on your car's dashboard. Drivers can find their way using maps on a computer screen next to the steering wheel. The electronic navigator will also soon be talking. Drivers will be able to find the best routes with directions on a synthesized voice. The system costs about $2,000 and includes restaurant and hotel locations. 1 year has passed since the Brady handgun law took effect. Studio One's Bob Dunlap looks at how the controversial law affects the Grand Forks area.
Passed into law 1 year ago, the Brady bill is designed to keep the streets safer by taking guns out of criminal hands. Buyers must now wait 5 days from time of purchase, allowing police to check personal backgrounds for criminal activity. One Grand Forks retailer says the 5-day waiting period has had little effect on gun sales.
We've yet to have a person who's filled out the application that has been turned down overall.
The Grand Forks Sheriff's Office has processed 400 background checks since last year. The checks often come up clean, but for one person, the law served its purpose.
And then we had the one that, we had the warrant for, and he gave us his correct address on, on the application, so we were able to take care of that too.
The $10 processing fee for each background check causes many buyers to opt for a cheaper and easier alternative. A concealed weapons permit is a one-time $35 fee. It allows owners to carry a gun within the state. An increase in concealed weapons permits worries the Sheriff's Department.
It really has an impact on the deputies that are working out in the county at night because they really have to be careful. They're a little bit more paranoid than they used to be, that thinking that somebody they stop is going to have a handgun.
A side effect of the Brady law has affected local gun collecting shows in Grand Forks. Handguns once made up 50% of the annual Dakota Territory Gun Show. Now, handguns are hard to find at the shows. The Brady law was designed to make the streets safer, but it has caused concerns in the region with the increase of concealed weapons permits. Bob Dunlop, Studio One News.
Hill says over 200 people applied for the concealed weapon permits since the Brady law went into effect last year. Taxpayers' money funded a national stop smoking campaign that produced only modest results. $45 million of federal resources funded a 4-year program called Community Intervention Trial or Commit. The program conducted a survey in 22 communities across the U.S. and Canada. It randomly divided the communities into pairs. One side received smoking education and awareness. The other received nothing. 31% of light smokers quit smoking under the program, while 28% quit in the non-intervention communities, a difference of only 3%. The quitting rate for heavy smokers was 16% in both types of communities. The National Cancer Institute has a new project underway called Project Assist. They estimate saving 1.2 million lives.
Why didn't the program have as big of impact as they had hoped?
Well, actually, the program was based on information in the early 1980s, and it didn't take into consideration the rising price of cigarettes or the change in the public attitude.
Mm-hmm.
And our attitude towards the weather is getting better. Adam joins us now to give us an update.
Yeah, that's right. And our temperatures are smoking because it's going to be warming up throughout the weekend. It looks like temperatures that were below zero in the beginning of the week will now be up into the 40s by the end of the weekend. So perfect weather. But today it's partly cloudy with a temperature of 18 degrees, winds from the south at 16 miles per hour, and the barometric pressure is falling. The forecast for today does call for partly cloudy skies throughout the day with a high in the upper 30s, winds from the south at 10 to 25 miles per hour. Tonight it will remain partly cloudy with a low only dropping down to the mid-20s and winds from the south at 5 to 15 miles per hour. And there's that warm-up. It's a March meltdown as temperatures continue to rise throughout the weekend with highs possibly as high as 42, and that kind of depends on how much snow is still left on the ground.
Mm-hmm. I never thought I'd see 40s.
Yeah, you know, really, it did look that way last week, you know. And we had all that snow.
Keep it up.
Glad to see it.
Thanks, Adam. Well, when a woman discovers she is pregnant for the first time, her initial reaction might be a lifestyle change, but it doesn't always have to be that way. Studio One's Jenna Davis looks at the importance of exercise during pregnancy and what it can mean for a mother and her new baby.
Right knee, 2 kicks. What do we say?
Wow, let's back up and see that again.
What do we say?
That's right, she's pregnant, 8 months pregnant, and teaching an aerobics class at Medview Health Center in Grand Forks. Julie Gauze pumps and sweats with the best of them. She's been doing this kind of exercise for more than 5 years. And now, twice a week, she leads the jazzercise class through an hour and 15-minute workout. You would think with all that bouncing around and jogging, there would be some sort of discomfort. But Julie says the pain that she expected simply isn't there.
People will look at me, one of the comments they say is, it doesn't move. It doesn't move. Nothing moves here. It's just like a basketball. It just stays still. And I really don't feel, you know, I kept waiting. I guess, you know, when I'd be 5 months and 6 months along, I thought, well, pretty soon this is going to feel real heavy and real sluggish. But I don't feel that way at all.
Julie didn't always exercise during her pregnancies. She says she handled her first 2 pregnancies at a slower pace. But this time she decided to keep her weight down and step things up a bit.
Yeah, I had 2 kids before without exercising at all. And I felt really good then too, but I gained more weight and I think I feel more energetic. I don't feel tired at all.
Julie's obstetrician, Dr. Peter Funk, says that Julie and her unborn child are in no danger. Because Julie had been exercising regularly before she became pregnant, there was no reason for her to stop her regular routine.
Being that she had done this before she was pregnant, I didn't have a lot of concerns about it. We certainly talked about her using common sense, that if she didn't feel well or if that something came up, that we wanted her to limit it.
Studies show that exercise during pregnancy can reduce many of the discomforts a woman might face. Staying active can help alleviate things like backache, fatigue, bloating, and swelling. Regular exercise can also elevate your energy level, mood, and self-image. Basically, if a woman has worked out regularly before becoming pregnant and everything is proceeding normally, regular exercise is highly recommended. But not every expectant mother is capable of working out on a regular basis. UND student Keely Lohman is also pregnant and tries to work out when she has the time. Because of her busy schedule and her energy level, she no longer makes it to the gym as much as she'd like.
I work 2 days a week, and I go to school 26 hours a week. So between that and homework, I don't have a lot of time. There's sometimes during the week when you just don't feel good about yourself. You don't feel like you're, I don't know, you just feel lazy. You feel really out of shape. And if you can just go even to the gym once or twice a week, it really helps with your self-esteem and it makes you feel better. I have more energy after I exercise.
In the past, many thought the minute a woman becomes pregnant, it's time to stay home. But Keely's doctor, Stephen Weingardner, says today, exercise is a part of many women's everyday lives.
What can they do? They can walk. Walking is an excellent cardiovascular exercise. As long as you walk at a pace of 1 mile every 15 minutes, you do excellent cardiovascular work.
So if you exercise a little or a lot and you become pregnant, ask your doctor about changes in your routine. You might be surprised at his reply.
And Jenna joins us. Jenna, what does weight gain mean for the baby?
Well, sometimes when you exercise quite a bit, you don't gain as much weight, which the average weight gain is about 30 pounds. So it can mean less body fat for the baby when it's born, and in conditions like there are in North Dakota, sometimes that can mean the baby gets cold.
So if you're pregnant, what exercises shouldn't you do?
Biking, any kind of strenuous exercise that wasn't being done before you got pregnant, basically.
Good. Fun report. Thanks, Jenna. Up next on Studio One, Brigadier General James Andrews and his thoughts on what the Air Force Base can look forward to in the future. Look at me.
Banking is easy when you have options, like the options you get at Community National Bank. Like their friendly tellers. Can I have this traded in for nickels?
Sure, Bill.
And I love going to customer service.
That's your old Bill.
Yes, thank you. That's customer service. Check cash card convenience when you need it the most. And those drive-ups, always one of my favorite options. And these 24-hour ATMs conveniently located all over town. Aren't they the best?
Laughter overflows, people meeting people, an exciting place to go. Something's there for everyone, and you can see it all. You're free to choose a million things, so meet me at the mall. Meet me at Columbia Mall.
I was looking for a car for 3 months, and the folks at Honda Nissan knew I did TV commercials. And so they asked me for suggestions. And all I could tell them was how great I was treated at Honda Nissan. And the next thing you know, here I am. When I went to Honda Nissan, I was treated with such respect. And I really couldn't believe the quality and selection that I found there. People always tell me that you get what you pay for. But at Honda Nissan, you really do get what you pay for.
The Grand Forks Air Force Base was spared from the closure list. That's good news for Grand Forks and for Brigadier General James Andrews, the base commander. He joins us today to discuss the future of the Grand Forks Air Force Base. Thank you, sir, for joining us today.
Well, good morning.
The 319th Air Refueling Wing is the main unit at the Grand Forks Air Force Base, and it serves as one of 3 major supertanker bases in the United States. What does that mean to the people of the Air Base and also to Grand Forks?
Well, it means that we are one of the cornerstones for the mobility mission of our nation. There are 2 sides of the defense of the nation. One is mobility, and the other is the pointy ends of putting guns and bombs on the targets. Our job is to supply the forces, work at the forward locations. And our 48 airplanes that are mobility airplanes are engaged every day in our nation's mission. We are in Southwest Asia today with one of my squadrons. We work at Bosnia, over Panama, and we have airplanes in the Pacific, and also in Europe.
Now, the closure and realignment lists have just come out again. Grand Forks was not on the closure list, but are we allowed to stop worrying yet?
This is just the beginning of the BRAC process. As you know, the closure and realignment list, we are on the realignment list. And the Secretary of Defense has stated that the 321st Missile Group will close and be inactivated should the BRAC Commission make its decision to do that. However, there was a caveat that by 1996, if the Secretary of Defense, after reviewing the Anti-Ballistic Missile Treaty, decides that the missile fields at Grand Forks are important to that treaty, then at that time the 91st Missile Group at Minot will inactivate. And inactivation means that the missiles will move to Maelstrom, Montana, will either go into a depot and be retired.
Now, what happens to Grand Forks Air Force Base if they do inactivate the 321st Missile Group?
Well, for us at the base, we will start a process, and the BRAC Commission requires by law that the actions begin within 2 years and be completed by 5 years. So we will start a process of change. I can't tell you how soon because, of course, we're right in the beginning and the decision hasn't been made. But for the community, we probably should prepare in the inevitability that the 321st will inactivate, to be prepared for that. I don't know of any new missions that will come about out at the base, but that'll all depend on, as the Air Force, new structure, new threat, and as it looks, what will happen in the next 5 or 6 years.
Now, the Grand Forks Air Force Base has been here since the 1950s. There's been a really strong relationship between the Grand Forks community and the base. How has that been a really important thing in the last few years?
Well, it's a very, very important thing to us because our airmen and our officers' quality of life and a good place to live is very, very important. If they're happy where they are, if the community appreciates them, then they are able to do their mission better and perform their job. Being isolated doesn't help our morale. However, here at Grand Forks, we have such a great relationship with the downtown that it's a wonderful place to live.
Great. Well, thank you very much for joining us today, General Andrews.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
Beth Randklev joins us next on Studio One with a look at education in the year 2000.
Great food can come from anyone, as long as the shredded natural cheese comes from Sargento of Wisconsin.
Newman Outdoor Advertising, a sight for more eyes. Outdoor advertising, it's bigger than life. It gives you flexibility. Use it as a constant reminder. Use it to advertise your message or product. Outdoor advertising, it's big, it's bold. Get your message across. Outdoor advertising, it works. For more information, call Bill Kasager in Fargo or Grand Forks.
The University Bookstore at UND is open to everyone and invites you to make it your lifelong learning resource center. At the largest university bookstore in the Dakotas, you can choose from a wide selection of educational materials, imprinted clothing, and gift items. The trade department carries general interest books, reference materials, and educational software. Special orders and direct mailing services are available at the University Bookstore by calling 1-800-671-0948.
As soon as our children start school, we want the very best for them in the education system. Today we'll hear from one of the women who has recently been named the National Distinguished Principal for North Dakota. Beth Randklev is a strong believer in that school administrators, parents, and businesses must work as one when educating our children. Beth, thanks for joining us today.
It's my pleasure.
You know, you have two very big accomplishments. You won 2 awards, and one of them is called the Milken Award. Can you tell us what that means and what that means for education?
The Milken Award comes from the Milken Family Foundation out of California. They developed this award in 1981 because they really believed it was essential for the health of our country that good education is happening. And they really wanted to recognize and reward educators who were making a difference. And it was their stab at making a difference. And so that's kind of where that came from. North Dakota has been participating for 3 years. And last year, Alan Janes from our community, math teacher, was a Milken winner. So Grand Forks can be really proud to have 2 Milken winners in just the 3 years that they have been participating here in North Dakota.
Well, that is excellent. You know, we have some educational issues that you feel are important and that we should talk about this morning. And let's talk about that.
That'd be great.
The first one is the public is satisfied.
Well, one of the things that the Gallup poll continues to tell us, and that we know here in Grand Forks is often that while we're going through rapid change, which is part of what Milken says we need to support educators for to deal with the rapid change, both in the next couple things in our communities and with the challenges that children are bringing today. At the same time, sometimes our communities are satisfied, and while that's great and wonderful that they're so pleased with how schools are, at the same time then there isn't always that willingness for the public to change and support educators and staff development to keep us current so we can keep meeting the demands and the changes that we find. So while it's a plus for people to be happy with their schools the way they are, and I think our Grand Forks community is very supportive, on the other hand, that can also be a liability sometimes when we really need to move ahead.
How are the children providing more challenges?
Well, one of the things that we talk about is, and Milken talks about, is how rapidly our society is changing. And we're hearing all the time now about how it takes a village to raise a child. And certainly things are different than they used to be in terms of not just changing family, but changing community. We don't have people at home in the neighborhoods. We don't have extended family nearby to support people. We have a lot of families going through change, divorce and moving and other change. We have children who come to us who've been in many different schools, sometimes by the 2nd grade. And that is really provides us with children who have more challenges, who just haven't had the supports that once upon a time children have. Also with our medical advancements, we have children in schools that we didn't always have in schools before because they didn't live. And so while that's wonderful, those medical breakthroughs, they do provide challenges in learning and sometimes in health that we haven't always had to meet.
One of the things you also talked about that we could just touch on briefly is how you expect the business community and parents and teachers to work together in educating the children.
Well, that's really what you're hearing kind of all over, and it's getting to be almost a cliche, but that it does take a village to raise a child. And our community needs to really look and address that and work together. We have some exciting things happening in Grand Forks I think we can be especially proud of. First of all, we had the first Foundation for Education for public schools formed here in Grand Forks, and Sandy Glass is our director for that, and so to try to get businesses to be working with schools here. And then they have business education partnerships. That is a real new thing here. And our district has provided a parent education resource center. We were the first in the state to do that, to support parents and families. So those are some things that we're doing as a community that we need to continue to build on.
Great. Beth, thank you so much for joining us today, and congratulations on your awards.
My pleasure, thank you.
And you're watching Studio One. We'll be back right after this.
And pick your insurance company? As your agent and broker, that's our exact job. We think we do it well, and have been since 1947. Voller Insurance, Grand Forks, Devils Lake, Bismarck.
UND's Division of Continuing Education can help you learn throughout your lifetime. Begin or continue your education through correspondence study and learning after hours with classes on weekends and evenings. Or enhance your personal and professional development through conferences, management seminars, and specialized programs.
Our goal is to provide quality programs and extend UND resources to you.
For more information, call 777-4266 or 1-800-342-8230.
If you don't want your fish swimming in these waters, try the world's greatest tuna sub at Subway. Chunk-like tuna, fresh baked bread, and all your favorite fixins. So remember, it's their way or Subway, the place where fresh is the taste.
Some people love the seafood, or all the fresh fixins. But what gets most people is the crab. The Subway Seafood and Crab Sub. Subway, the place where fresh is the taste.
And that's it for today on Studio One. Thanks so much for joining us. We're going to leave you with pictures from the Feast of Nations here at UND, shot by our Jason Beck from Studio One. And from all of us here, have a great week.